Hi, my name is Carl Spateri with Benchmark Mortgage. Thank you for joining our workshop. We call it the Smart Homebuyer Workshop. We're going to talk about the reasons I believe if and when the time is right for you, you should own a home. We're going to take about 30 minutes and go over that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call, email, raise your hand, whatever, however we can answer your questions, we're here to help. The objectives of our workshop is going to provide you with the knowledge you need to purchase a home. It's going to help you determine if you're ready to buy, right? You don't want to buy a home before you're ready. Understand the role inflation plays in home ownership, the many benefits other than inflation, a hedge against inflation for ownership, and how owning a home compares to renting. The reasons people don't buy homes in today's market, right? There are many. I mean, we have listed a few here, but I'm sure there's many, many more here. They don't know if home values continue to increase. We've had an incredible run up in the price of housing, and people think, well, we've run up as high as we can. I got plenty of time. They're not going to go any higher. They don't know what programs are available to them, and that would make sense. You're not a mortgage professional. You're someone who's looking to maybe buy a home. It's important to get professional advice. They don't understand the process that you need to go through to buy it. They don't think they can afford it. Very, very common. Probably the most common statement that is made is, I can't afford to buy a home. And you maybe not be able to afford your dream home at this stage in your life, but you can probably afford a home. They don't think they can qualify, don't have enough down payment, not necessarily an obstacle. They don't understand the tax benefits, and the tax benefits have changed since 2018. They don't understand that the housing bubble of 2009, that maybe their parents or grandparents are saying, oh, the housing market is so high today, it's going to collapse. I'm going to kind of go over the reasons why I don't believe that to be true. So we're going to start with a quiz, and maybe you can go along with me here, and you probably know the answers to a lot of these, but does a homeowner need 20% down to buy a home today? The answer to that is false. If you're a veteran or active duty military, by the way, thank you for your service. Can you only use your VA loan one time? So you got to make that decision of a lifetime, or can you use it more than one time? The answer is you can use it more than one time. The market is dropping now. So is now a good time to buy a home, or should I wait, right? Well, nobody knows what the future is going to bring, right? Absolutely nobody. We can only look at statistics moving backwards, base our decisions on. I can only tell you that the market's dropping now. Is that a good time to buy a home? Should I wait until they drop further? Well, you have to kind of look at that, and everybody's worried about the 2008, 2009 timeframe when there was excess housing. The reason I don't believe housing is going to drop any further is because housing starts, new home construction has never picked up to the levels it did in the early part of the century. Interest rates are high. Should I wait for them to come down? Well, again, nobody knows what the future will bring. What if rates don't come down? Even though I believe they will at some point. Is it 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years from now? Nobody knows. Do you continue renting or continue living in the current home and not move up to where you need to because interest rates are high? Or should you just kind of wait for the economy to kind of do its thing and determine where rates go? And when they come down, you have the opportunity to refinance. So I believe that is false. And tax benefits of the primary ownership to own a home, I believe that is false as well. There's many more important aspects to owning a home than possible tax benefits. So what do we know? We do know that if you want to know what's going on in the housing or mortgage industry, you look at your telephone, you pick up an iPad, there's these things called newspapers that people used to read, right? There's television news, there's ways to get information. If you read 5 different articles, you're going to get 10 different opinions. So everybody has an opinion and then some on what's going to happen in real estate. The reality is nobody knows. We do know there's a finite amount of housing in our area. There's only so many places to build. The reality of that is until there's more new construction or less people, the trend in housing will be to continue upward. All the trends and stats, again, nobody can predict the future. So trends and stats are a rear linking gauge. Nobody knows whether housing prices are going to go up or going to go down. We can only look at statistics and tell you that in our opinion, housing has an upward bias. We can't control the direction of the market. We know that. The economy does that. Whether the market goes up or the market goes down is all dependent on the nationwide economy and also the local economies. If a big employer in town pulls out of town, it can have a negative effect on housing values for a period of time while the nation is still increasing, or vice versa. We do know one thing for sure, that nobody can tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, right? We know that. So where are we now? Well, this is a diagram I like a lot. The area of excitement is the bandwagon, right? It was probably 2020, 2021, maybe parts of 22, where everybody wanted to buy a house. There was so much excitement around around housing. We probably got to a point of panic toward the end of last year where the economy started drifting off, rates rose a little bit, there was some job layoffs announced, and people all panicked and pulled back and said, whoa, we better stop. Well, I don't know exactly where we are today, but I will tell you, you don't really want to buy things when everybody else is buying, and you don't really want to sell things when everybody else is selling. So is now a good time to buy? Combination of high rates and high home prices make homeownership unaffordable for many. Would you rather be trying to buy a home when many are trying to buy a home, or would you try and buy a home when not as many are trying to buy a home? Inventories are still limited. Like I said before, there are more people coming into this country every day, and new housing is not keeping up with the demand. The millennials are in their family formation at this time, and so moving out of parents' homes, moving into their own homes, starting families, having children, all that is kind of happening with the average millennial being age 31. Housing inventories are still limited and will most likely continue to be limited. Like we talked before, housing starts, there's not been the level of housing starts that we need to level out the supply demand of housing. Interest rates, even though they seem high compared to the 3% and below rates that we saw a few years ago, interest rates are about average for the mortgage industry if you go back 100, 150 years. So even though they're high, they're not as high as they could be, and rates never go up and stay up. They never come down and stay down. So there will be refinance opportunities in the future. So why can waiting cost you? Lending guidelines can change. As the economy tightens, sometimes credit scores are raised where the minimum scores for certain programs, debt to income ratios sometimes can change. You're going to talk to a mortgage professional before you decide to buy a home, but all these terms will be explained to you in detail. But interest rates can go up or down depending on the economy. In a buyer's market, sellers are more willing to negotiate. In a seller's market, sellers are less willing to negotiate. So when would you rather buy a home? When you have opportunity to negotiate a little bit, or when you don't? Credit scores can go up and down if you're not aware of your credit score going up or down, right? You pay all your bills on time. What if you were going out to dinner in a downtown area and you park somewhere and you happen to park in a no parking zone? You get a parking ticket. The parking ticket comes off the windshield, whether somebody removes it intentionally, it blows off, however it is. You don't receive the parking ticket. You don't receive the notice of payment that the payment is owed. And 30 days later, that parking ticket for $50 goes into collection. It just affected your credit score by 50 to 100 points. You don't know what you don't know. It wouldn't be the first time that has happened to somebody. You propose any tax benefit you may have, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. You're living someplace where maybe you don't really want to be, or you're paying money to somebody who's paying their mortgage off on your hard work. So waiting can cost you. What if you said, I talked to my parents or grandparents, they said, make sure I save 20% before I buy a home. So how long will it take you to save 20%? We have two scenarios here. Scenario one is, and we're going to use $650,000 as a purchase price. We're going to use a 3% down payment versus a 20% down payment. So if you're saving down payment on a $650,000 purchase, would it be easier to save $19,500 or $130,000? The obvious answer is $19,500. You see that the $19,500 turns into $34,000, and that's because there's something called closing costs when you buy a home. Underwriting fees, escrow fees, title fees, a lot of different fees that get added on there. So we're going to take those into consideration. So again, is it easier to save $34,000 or $145,000? If you look at the loan amount of $630 versus $520, same interest rate. Again, this is all for illustration purposes only. We're not quoting interest rates. We're not telling you exact anything, just to show you an example. But the mortgage payment comes down to $39.85, almost $4,000 a month, to $32.86. It's a savings. You're going to have something called mortgage insurance because you're not putting 20% down on the property. So it's going to add another $168 a month to your payment. Property taxes, we're guessing at $677. Hazard insurance, $115. So it's $4,945 per month versus $4,059 per month, a difference of $886. If you're able to save $35,000, let's say, that means you have the ability to save. Would it be easier to live in the home, get appreciation on the home, and come up with an additional $886 a month while you're paying rent to yourself as opposed to paying rent to a landlord? How long would it take you to come up with the $145,000? What happens to interest rates during that time frame? What happens to property values during that time frame? Now, you could get lucky and they go down during that time frame. But again, my opinion is housing has an upward bias. So depending on the scenario, nobody knows for sure. Again, nobody can predict the future. But in my opinion, you might consider buying a home with less down, paying a little bit more money monthly, enjoying the benefits of living in your own home, and enjoying the benefits of possible appreciation. So why should you own a home? I think it's a forced savings account. Part of the payment that you make goes toward principal, pays down the principal, which means your equity position in the home rises a little bit. It builds wealth. As the property appreciates in value, it adds to your net worth. Something what's called leveraged asset growth. If you take a stock, right, and you wanted to buy $500,000 worth of Apple stock, good company, and you want to buy $500,000 of Apple stock, you would need $500,000 to buy Apple stock. If you were to buy a $500,000 home, what would you need to borrow it based on our last example? 3% down, $15,000 plus closing costs. So you can leverage a $500 asset with $15,000. As opposed to the Apple stock, you need $500,000 to buy $500,000 of Apple stock. So if they both go up 10%, it was both a good investment, right? However, because you only had $15,000 into a $500,000 stock house, you would gain $50,000 with a $15,000 investment. So housing gives you and again, I'm not telling you this is the reason you should buy a home, but it is one of the many reasons. Again, you can always buy the Apple stock and the home, right? If you had $500,000, you buy $450,000 worth of Apple stock, you put $50,000 into your home. Now you own two assets at $500,000. Gives you a lot of choices. Possible tax savings. I'm going to leave that talk with your CPA or tax professional about, because this is a gray area based on the 2018 tax rework. So not as straightforward as it used to be. Rental equivalency. What does that mean? It means you got to live somewhere. You're going to rent or you buy, right? You got to live somewhere, so you might as well own if you can. So wealth inside a house, the forced savings part of this can only increase in two ways. You, principal, right? You are going to put money down payment and make monthly payment. That's how the forced savings account works. If you're going to build wealth in real estate, building wealth inside your house can increase in two ways: down payment and monthly payment. That's the wealth you create inside of your house. Appreciation is also a factor that goes in there. If the housing market raises by 5%, 10%, your equity position in the house has increased. If you have a $500,000 home and it goes up 10%, now you have a $550,000 home. If you owe $300,000 when you started, you had $200,000 worth of equity. House goes up 10% in value. Now you have $250,000 worth of equity in the home, right? So that's the way appreciation helps you in your financial world. So if we go, well, Carl, housing has pretty much stagnated. If we go back all the way to 1991, when we look at the state of California, for example, it has gone up 304%. Now, has it gone straight up? Absolutely not. It has gone up. It has come down. It has gone back up. There's been period during the 2009 to probably 2014 period where housing was down for quite a while. However, if you're looking at a house not as an investment, but as a home, then the value of your home doesn't really matter until the day you decide to sell it. So that's what we want to kind of focus on. You're buying a home. It happens to be a good investment, or could be a good investment. Supply and demand. So let's look at this. In 1906, there was about 75 million people that lived in this country. The change from the previous 50 years was the double of housing, and the median priced home was $5,000. Fast forward to 1956, the population doubled, and the price of housing tripled. Fast forward to 2006, again, these are 50-year increments, population doubles again to about 300 million people, and the U.S. price of a home is up over 15 times. 2056, I don't know where housing is going to be. However, would you think it would double? Would you think the population will double? We don't know. Nobody can predict the future. However, think about it. Whether you buy a house now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, do you think housing is going to be cheaper? Less expensive? So what if the house never goes up in value? It just never does. It just stays stagnant. Should you still buy it? I don't know. Let's look at renting. Rent goes up every year. You've been renting for how many years? Has rent ever stayed solid, straight, with no increases for more than a year, maybe 2 years? But eventually rents go up. You get absolutely no tax benefit for renting. There's no ownership. Whenever you decide to move, you pack up your stuff and you leave. And there's no equity. You have no equity built up. You could live in a place 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. When you decide to leave, you take your stuff and you leave. The landlord doesn't say, hey, here's the appreciation I got back to you, right? You just leave. You've wasted all that money. Or if you own a home, the payment remains the same. If you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, that payment will stay fixed for 30 years until you no longer owe any money on the home, versus rent going up every year, every few years. Tax benefits, again, talk to your CPA or tax advisor about tax benefits, but there are possible tax benefits to owning a home. You get the buildup of equity. So again, if the property goes up 10% per year or 5% per year, that money's yours to keep. So what does your house payment include? You're going to pay principal and interest in most cases. The principal is going to be a small number when you start. The interest is going to be the larger number. As you pay down your mortgage, that inverts. Every month, a little bit more money goes to principal, a little less money goes to interest because you're paying down the principal. However, that's a long journey. It's a 30-year process. Again, I want you to speak with your CPA, tax professional, about tax efficiency, but on a yearly basis. But the big benefit to owning a home is that if you live in your home for 2 years out of the previous 5 years, when you sell your home, you get to keep, if you're single, $250,000. If you're married, $500,000 tax-free, not a penny in taxes. Think about your paycheck at work. Think about how much you make per month, per year. Think how much goes out to state and federal taxes, Social Security, all the different taxes, right? This is a way to make up to $500,000 if you're married and not pay $1 in taxes. People do this. They live in a house for 2 years, they sell it, they take the profits, they buy another place. Again, there's a lot of different strategies you can use here, but think of tax-free money. You pay home insurance. That number can vary a little bit from year to year, depending on your insurance company and different ratings and different things. So that can be a variable, but it's not going to be real substantial. Homeowners association dues, if you're in a condo area or you have a planned unit development, those numbers can change a little bit as well. Mello-Roos, it's always done in new areas where they build roads and parks and schools, and the people that buy into that area will take out a 30-year bond or 20-year bond, and then the people that buy into the area will pay that back on a monthly basis. Mortgage insurance, if you don't put 20% down, which is a constant number, and property taxes, again, which can go up a little bit on a yearly basis. But pretty much once you buy a home, your payment is fixed until you choose to sell the home, refinance the home, lower your interest rate, take cash out of the home, whatever you decide to do, but it's all your choice. If all these reasons, the forced savings, the building wealth, the leverage asset growth, the asset diversification, the possible tax saving, and the rental equivalency is not enough, let's look at the hedge against inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is the increase in the cost of goods over time. So let's say in 2022, you buy a home, it's $4,945 a month. What does that feel like with 4% inflation? Now, right now, we're running at about 6.8%. It's been down as low as in the low ones. It's been up in the high nines. We don't know where inflation is going to go. Again, we can't predict the future. But let's say we just use 4% as a round number. In 5 years, in 2027, because you're getting raises at work, because you just get used to the payment, that almost $5,000 a month payment is going to feel like $3,695 per month. That's what inflation does. Makes prices feel higher or makes prices feel lower, but you're usually making more money on a yearly basis just because of cost of living adjustments at your job. If we fast forward to about 2045, which is a long time from now, but that payment now feels like $1,824. I take you back to maybe when you bought your first car, your first significant purchase, and you bought it over time, you did pay cash for it. Maybe when you bought your first car, right? You go out, you see the car, catches your eye, and you go, I want to have this car. You negotiate it, whatever, the dealer goes, that'll be $500 per month. You're going, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to pay $500 a month? And you pay it for a month, you pay it for 2 months, you pay it for 6 months. At a certain point, it's just something you pay. It's not even thought of. That's kind of what a house payment is going to look like. It's like your rent. It's like anything else you don't pay cash for. Eventually you get used to it as long as you buy what you can afford when you're ready. Let's look at rent inflation. I've said that if you buy a home, your mortgage pretty much stays consistent over the term of the loan until you decide to change it. Well, not when you rent. So when you rent, let's say annually that's $42,000 a year. You're actually giving your landlord $42,000 of net income every single year, not gross income, net income. Net income is after taxes are taken out. You're handing them $42,000 a year and say, thank you for allowing me to live in your home. So they say, you're welcome. However, we're going to raise your rent 3%. You go, well, it's $105 a month. By the time I move, I might as well pay it. So you pay that, and now you've given your landlord $43,000 net. They say, thank you very much, and we'll continue this. Year 3, same thing. You've given them $44,000. Year 4, you give them now $45,000, almost $46,000. And year 5. Now, I'm not saying they're going to raise it 3% every year. I'm not saying it's not going to go up 10% in a year. You don't know. You have no control over this. But let's look at this last number. You've given your landlord $223,000. You rent a place and it's $3,500 per month. Think about it. How does that feel? Of your hard-earned net income after taxes. This is a chart provided to us by the Census Bureau, and this shows the increase of rent over time. As you can see, there's very rare occasions where rent has stabilized or not gone up. So what if you said, Carl, this is really cool. What I'd like to do is have my cake and eat it too, right? Well, what if you bought a home with a rental unit? Well, I said, Carl, I can't afford a rental unit. Let's look at it. Let's say you purchased a $600,000 home. You put 20% down because you had the money, and your balance is $480,000. Your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment is $3,746 per month. But Carl, I can't buy a home with a rental on it for $600,000. Okay, let's raise the price to $850 now, can you? Well, your down payment goes goes to 127.5. Your balance is 722.5, and your principal, interest, tax, and insurance payment is 55.84. You subtract $2,500 in rent, your net payment is now $3,084. So you could buy $850,000 home for about $700 less than a $600,000 single family. In California, we have something called the accessory dwelling units as well, where maybe you can add a unit to help with this. Again, these are examples. These are ideas to get you to think. Smart Home Buyer Workshop. That's what we want to do, is make you a smart home buyer. What are the next steps? Well, if you like what we had to say, I'd like for you to give us a call and get qualified for a loan. Once you get qualified, we're going to ask you to apply for a loan. Once you get applied for a loan, we're going to get you a formal approval. Once you get a formal approval, I'm going to go find a property. Let's have some fun. Let's go to open houses. Let's hire a realtor and let's go find some houses to buy. We received a lot of our information from an organization called NIFE, National Institute of Financial Education. Annualcreditreport.com is the place to go to obtain your free credit report from the government monitored website. We use opt-out pre-screening as well. A parting gift for you is the Secret Guide to Credit Scoring. Drop us an email, drop us a text, and we'll get you the Secret Guide to Credit Scoring. It's a very informative book to help you with your credit score if you need it. And of course, we'll give you an advice or help that we can. And if you could at least think of one person that might benefit this workshop, it's online, it's at your convenience. I would love for them to take a listen. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Carl Spiteri, Benchmark Mortgage, and my contact information is here. I'd love to answer your questions. Have a good day. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.